Let's go through. Hello everybody. Slaan here, and as you can see from the title, it's now time to start thinking about a new city, a new project. Taking everything that we've learned from the original Project Slaan pattern, going back even further to the original Alpha 12 style city blocks. Was one of the first things I've done really. But then looking at the way that we've done things more recently in the world that I've been shown off over the past few streams, where we've built the city up out of a jigsaw of little pieces. And it's just kind of taking the things that worked from all of those ideas and maybe reapproaching the whole concept and way that we build the city and starting something from scratch. So I've got a couple of things to show off. Other than first, the new microphone. I'm hoping this is going to make a massive difference. I still worry it might be a little bit too loud, so for people who do join in there or watching live, just give us a nudge and chat or get us on Discord or something for those that have us there. But first of all, before we start looking at the map, because I've had a lot of comments before about like modifying the height map, modifying the splat 3 and doing your roads, and things like that require, obviously I use paint.net for most of my stuff, but you will need something else to do the biome PNG, and these things we will approach when it comes to designing the whole new map. But the city bit is the part that I'm more interested in, so I want to make sure that that's going to work first, that we're not going to waste any time, and then when it's time to decide on a new map where we're going to put this city or start this idea properly, then we can make adjustments to, well, things like the highway, for example, has to be set the same level across the whole map for the roads to stay even, and that can factor in how high or low you want to make the terrain, where you put mountains, and there's a lot of things to consider when you come to actually approaching the map. So for this stream, we're going to look at how I would or will start building the city from scratch with just the initial sort of prefabs, how we're going to lay it out, how we're going to do the streets and roads, what are we going to commit into city blocks, and how are we going to go about building the city itself. Because I think some kind of amalgamation of the very early Alpha 12 style city, where we maybe build the centre, or a central sort of more dense area out of the grid sort of system with the city blocks, and then we'll thin it down into something that resembles a bit more like what we have now with the socket system, with a few loose streets coming off and then populating them with individual prefabs and stuff via the world editor. What are we on at the minute? Right, so the first thing I've done was decide city blocks for me is probably where I want to start. We're going to use these to seed in the sewer, the main road system, the style of streets and things like that. And I wanted to create a prefab that I could kind of build on, just to get a bit of perspective in terms of how things are going to look against streets. If I want to build something that's going to overhang a street, what kind of measurements am I going to have to factor in? How wide are the roads going to be? How long are the streets going to be? Because the current project map is a bit of a mishmash of just, I drew the grid system in paint.net without measuring anything, and then I built city blocks that would just fit in these little islands that the road system made. So everything was a different size, everything had to be made to measure, and they were only good for those particular parts. Whereas this, I'm hoping, is going to lead to a, is that the base? Yeah, that's the one. So this is going to let you calculate things, if we know that the core sort of city block sized areas of the city that we're going to start in the centre with and build out from are a particular size, it means that we can factor that in. So like when it comes to making sections of sewer, rather than trying to overlap a lot of little pieces, let's just start building a base piece that's just like these street sections, a fixed sort of size. It means we can focus more on junction points, on free space to join the systems together, while still not really wasting too much. And this is quite basic at the minute, but one of the things I wanted to do was how could we use things like the vanilla prefabs initially, and because we're not going to want all of them in a dense concrete jungle style city, but things like the skyscrapers, the hospital, some of the shops and business buildings, a lot of them don't really look too out of place. So we're still probably going to make a bunch of custom city blocks that we'll spawn next to each other, but we're going to take it or borrow an idea from Alpha 17 onwards, where we're also going to now make prefabs of the streets, but rather than use a dozen little prefabs, we're going to have a fixed size that doesn't have too many obstacles and things like the street lights and stuff like that, because the other streets are quite heavy on that sort of stuff. And even now we could probably trim them further down, you know, maybe just have two on each side. But that's the whole point of this little workspace here. You know, every time I want to make a new city block, I can start in this prefab and just take this out. But there's also another little trick that we can do, which I've just kind of discovered, which works in our favour. But we need to show the ground level. So straight away, there's a couple of things I've done different. I've went away from the normal curbs, like the half block concrete curb, because I believe it looks nicer, but we can still have this rounded effect here with these plates. That's what my hotbars are busy filled with at the minute as well. And it looks nice and tidy. You've got the pavement. It doesn't look as good as the curbs, but if we load up a prefab, or downtown, when it comes to dropping these prefabs in, I want a factor where a prefab might have a carpet. In fact, we'll use the skyscraper or 3, because we've already got a little demo with this planned anyway. So when I load this prefab up and we drop it into the city, it would be nice to have things like these roads and these joins blend in perfectly without having to modify this prefab at all. And then that means we can spawn this in the city into an area that it's designed to blend in perfectly with, and then still benefit from the quests and all the other things linked to this particular prefab. It'll always come with the sleeper volumes that they set for it. It'll always be this big massive adventure zone. We don't really want to be taking ownership of keeping a separate copy of this that we tinker, and then, you know, the olden way of doing Slaan would have been to have built this into the city block and then saved a copy of this, and then it would have mean having to make custom sleeper volumes for everything again, and there would be a way to copy everything over, but if it's already done, why do we want to do it again? So yes, we've got to make prefabs like this work, but no, we don't want to do it by taking copies of them. So it meant when you look at these, this is the kind of method that they've gone with now, and it's like this for a lot of prefabs. They either end directly in terrain blocks, or they use these little plates to make their sidewalks and pavements, or whatever you want to call them. So it means I'm going to be mainly using their prefabs to build this up initially. So it just kind of makes sense, even though I think the curbs could be made to work better. They both, with them being a half block that take up, you know, the full block space anyway, come with their own problems in that you can't place loot and decoration on top of them. But now, if it's going to make things easier over the long term, then I think it makes more sense to design the streets and road systems around blending in with these, because due to a trick in the order that things get spawned, we can actually build things to overlap. So I mean, I could wipe out all of this decoration here if I really wanted to. I don't know why I would. Is that an example around the back? Now I know that this prefab is smaller than the city block space by a considerable amount, so let's just say I wanted I'm not going to be able to build much else on the city block with a building like this, so I might want to just extend this car park out and just make it look a bit bigger, you know? I mean, how many people work and enter this building? And we've got a bit of an allowance to make it look a little bit more realistic, and it's not a bad way just to make the rest of the space look a little bit less empty. But it means if we do it and we want to change it and we want it to look good, we're going to have to build something into the city block that when it's spawned after this building overlaps the areas that we want to wipe out. So I don't know, I will most likely do that at some point if you aren't quite following what I'm trying to explain, but yeah, I think we'll definitely do it at some point, because sometimes you find you're left with a little strip of empty space on a city block and not a lot to do with it. So anyway, let's go back and get back into the test one that I made. Now, I've been onto the forum. In fact, did I put the link in the description? I think I did. Yeah, it's down there at the bottom. You can download the prefab pack and the project map that I've been shown off via the official forums now. I've updated the first post on the thread. The new links are there and should work fine. If they don't, or you have any problems with it, then just post back on. And that's literally just the world that you would drop into your worlds folder, and then the contents of the prefabs folder from the prefab pack into the games prefab folder. And then once you jump into the editor, you'll have all these extra categories and stuff like what I've got, and all these extra prefabs. So taking the idea that we're going to build at least some of the central city, well, not necessarily central, but we'll call it the central city, or the main city of the map. But because we're going to build at least part of it out of these city block sections, and we're not limited to the size, you know, we can go bigger and larger if we want to, and just to break up the sort of gridness, we might, when it comes to doing things like the park, you know, we're going to have to make allowances at some point. I know we will, so we'll deal with them as they happen. But initially, just as a test, I want to see how much effort is it going to be to blend, say, the Higashi skyscraper into the map using a custom city block like this, because this is probably initially going to be where the bulk of the work goes, but these themselves are quite a big area. I mean, I think it's 106 by 106 at the minute. We've got a 9-metre wide road, I believe, and a 19-metre road. I've changed you can see the decorations are a bit different. I still think I would use this as a main road and have 2 lanes for single direction on each one. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with the streets and stuff. Initially, I'm thinking probably aim for a 3x3 grid of these, just to get some things on and get things working, and have something that's a bit more substantial we can like take a step back from and have a good look at. So the first thing I would do now then, I want to see how the skyscraper is going to fit. So what have we got here? Now I just happen to have already made it. So basically, well, I'll take you through the method that I use for that, and then we'll just dive straight into that to save a little bit of time, because I want to get into the world editor and have a little bit of a mess around. This is just more of a catch-up initially, just to bring us up to speed on what I've done. But I would basically get rid of that. Now, because I know that skyscraper 03 is going to dominate this city block, nothing else prefab-wise is going to be put on here. I might build in some decoration. That's a bit too big. But basically, I'm just going to copy this out, press escape, create a new prefab, paste this straight back in, save it with this name, and then we'll work on it. So this is what I made in preparation. Get away. Now I know that the front end of the building is going to spawn facing the south side of the prefab. And what I basically done is copied that initial prefab area in and spawned the prefab in and adjusted its height. We'll do it all now. And it was downtown. Now, initially, I'd done this on the actual test area that had all the roads as well, just to get a feel for that. But if we look, it fits this hole perfectly. Now, if I just place it in, so you can imagine I've just spawned this prefab into the other city block. I've just wiped out a big massive chunk of terrain blocks where this has come in. I can see, oh, you know, it's a little bit too high. We'll bring it down a few. It's having a bit of a choke, yeah. I mean, bear in mind, these skyscrapers are massive. Oh, fuck's sake, we went too low. Place that again. Yeah, so that fits in nicely. So from this point, now bearing in mind we haven't saved this yet, or wouldn't have saved it yet at this point. So the first thing I'd done, once I was happy with the placement of the prefab on the city block, so we know that this is going to be joining a street. The street could have the same little cut-offs that are going to work with this road here. It's got a direct connection, it's going to blend in, it's going to look lovely. I've also marked out a sort of perimeter wall. Now, we might build this up and then with decorations in here create some kind of alleyway. We might end up running, I don't know, monorail or some other crazy fucking system across here. We might build in a connection to a sewer system or to some kind of subsystem from here, a subway station or whatever it is. So for now, for the purposes of testing, we're just going to make it all this little pavement slab so we can see the city block, the prefab, and maybe the street all working together in the world editor, just to see what it looks like, because I'm doubtful with these little plates, although when it comes to placing things down you can just get rid of these, put concrete block beneath it and build like benches and stuff like that on, and they don't look too out of place, to be honest. But initially we're happy with the placement of the prefab in the city block. We've made a few edits, like this wall. We've marked off the roads and stuff like that. So now we know if we just get rid of the prefab. So highlight it, press K to get its properties up, delete prefab. Then the game's going to hang and choke for 10 years. There we go. So what I was initially left with was the base city block with the wall in this little road bit, and then a big giant hole. So I can then save that. And then if I load that back up, because I've got a funny feeling I'm going to have to fix something that I had to fix the last time, because you'll notice here in the thumbnail there's no terrain or anything beneath there. However, you can see we've got some, we've got a lot of extra stuff here. Where does this come from? So at this point, Shift and Z, we'll zap this shit out the floor, because you will probably have this if you do it as well. Shift and Z. Just make sure that we catch all of this. And then J, we'll delete that. And let's just save it again. Isn't this still there? I don't know if that's just a visual bug or it's not something different one. Interesting. Yeah, no, that definitely. So what I need to do first of all, let's move that up. Because there shouldn't be anything in here. I mean, we can get fancy and get the city block to insert stuff into the prefab. But until there's a need to do stuff like that, it's a bit of a faff on to explain. There we go, I got rid of it. So, save prefab. Right, so that's all adjusted and nice. So from this point, this is when I then changed the terrain filler, added in all these pavement slabs, changed the decoration here a little bit, but generally saved it up. And this, until we add anything more to it, is one finished city block. Now I don't think, if I go to the streets, I did, okay. Right, okay. So let's get out of the world editor, project map. Right, now where am I? There we go. So in a true, here's one I placed earlier style. This is what the city block. Now, I mean, it doesn't line up with the roads, it's not supposed to. But this is what the two look like when they're spawned in together. So, I mean, you know, it's not too bad. But I did make a single street so that we could get one of those in as well, which is north and east. I'll do this way. And we'll save a couple of sections of street in. And it's the 106, yep, that's it there. Oh, naturally it would be the wrong way. So let's press X. Oh, this is gonna look fucked up. And this, we can line up almost perfectly. It needs what? 2 layers down. Yeah, it's just a bit fucked up now, isn't it? Ah, it's overlapping still, that's why. And is that high enough? I think it is. So we'll just place that. Now, because we've just clipped through those two prefabs, like the city block and the skyscraper one itself, although this is all placed properly now, it's actually teleporting away and coming back might be enough to fix that. No, we can still see the mesh file for the road before it was put in. Right, let's just save this piece of road into the map itself. And apologies for the loading times, but this is the easiest way I find to quickly just test things like this. It's not as punishing as loading a fresh game up, that's for sure. And there we go. Now, because all of these streets in the grid area are going to be the same size, it's going to be much easier to take a copy of this street and then just make that little edit so that this all works. Whereas in the old system, even if you just look at the map, I mean, you can see on the map, like the bendy lines, this was done in paint.net, and I haven't even been able to get the lines straight. But let's just go to this one. So again, here, I wanted a grid style system, but the squares are all wonky. All of these city blocks, top and bottom, are the same size, I believe, but depending on what I've done. So this is what I mean with the curbs. But then you've got this awkward step here, which it doesn't look too bad with some prefabs, but it's kind of like a street within a street. And if you drop them one level lower, then the footpath itself becomes like a little higher up, and I don't know. But we achieved the same sort of thing. We just we're going to do it a slightly different way now. But you can see just from the number of lampposts, and to a certain extent, I think I like this, where you can look down the street and see street sort of obstacles in the distance, but you know, it is a lot of decoration. It's a bit over the top. But I think we might have a need to have one-off big areas to cater for the bigger prefabs like the hospital or the churches and the really big custom things. But for the most part, we'll benefit a lot more having a set sort of size for the grid itself. It's once I'm totally happy, it's going to be a lot easier to make a couple of fucking things that are all the same size but different versions of than what it is to build something fresh, having to measure each street and add so many extra bits on, and it just eats into the time. It's a bit tedious. And it means for you guys, when you download these things, you can take a copy of that street that's the same size and make something that's just going to fit in and work with the system as well. And I'm not saying don't go super custom. For over the course of time, from building a new city from scratch, we're going to have to squeeze in some crazy things. So, like things like this, which I definitely need to fix somehow. Like, probably my favourite, most unique build prefab. And we'll just have this weird crazy shit going on. But I want to get all that stuff in. Is this Higashi's? Ah, it is. Ah, so it's not blended in perfectly. But we do have examples where I've... Yeah, so they're like in between these buildings here, using the city block, we're able to build up like just these little park areas, make up some alleys, extra decorations and stuff like that. Not perfectly, but and it's these little details that are going to make the area stand out. Bus stops and advertising, billboards, that sort of thing. I much prefer the 3-lane road to the big fat 2-lane one. But no, we'll make use of all of this stuff, I think. So to get back to our little test area. So yeah, I think this is probably going to be it. For a base design at least. So the next sort of step really is maybe is to approach how do we want to incorporate sewers into the city blocks. Do we want like the Alpha 12 original city blocks that we used where there was just a repeated grid pattern beneath the ground? Because I mean, we don't have the obstacle of not being able to put zombies and sleepers down there now, so the main complaint of them was they were just free loot and allowed you to avoid game mechanics, which wasn't entirely telling lies, but as a concept and on a PvP map, they were really good to play with, I found. And now we can just litter them with zombies and sleepers and all sorts of nasty shit. So I think some kind of subterranean maze is not too bad of an idea. But we have to be careful because while I'm quite comfortable building city blocks, if we show the bounds... when you look at the block count of these prefabs, there's not a lot. You know, we're still working with a minimalist sort of attitude where we're going to add as little as possible. Essentially just what we need, if we can. And we just have to be careful about space and things like the skyscrapers too close together. So we get rid of you. So yeah, that's the initial. I think the next what we need to do next is make another city block that would go opposite, and then take a copy of a street and just fix this up to be working with the road. But rather than, I think, with something just big like this, we'll maybe it's the waste buildings. What have we got? Downtown's usually not too... Oh, the theatre, that's quite a big... So yeah, I mean, if I look at something like this... Oh shit, I've just forgot you can't load these up like that, Penny. I'm not in the editor, I'm in the world editor. Yeah, let's get the fuck out of here. Right, so for the next, well, not necessarily the full city block, but for the side that's going to be facing So on the northern side of the city block itself, we want a street's worth of stuff. So what was I just looking at? Downtown. It's just in the thumbnail there, the front of the prefab having the terrain blocks kind of caught my eye because see, something like this is going to be interesting to use, because how are we going to blend this in to work with the street? So this would probably, in fact, we'll use that as an example. How long we've been going for? 35 minutes. We'll turn the rest, another hour and a half maybe, to show a few tricks with making these work, and then maybe overlapping. Right, okay. So then the next city block is going to start with base test. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just considering. So I'm just going to take a copy of the city block. Just here. Did we get it all? Yes. So just Control and C, copy that. Copy prefab. What did I hold this for? Base, okay. So Control and V. And because this is so big, we want to try and place it with where we can see all edges, otherwise we seem to get a bit of glitchy stuff. Now for Control and V again. It's good enough, so let's default. I don't mind naming the city blocks with the prefab naming that they're designed to fit. I think that kind of makes sense. But with smaller buildings, we might find that we've got space in some cases for 5 or 6 individual prefabs. So, I don't know, street base to say that it's part of the new city block base system, and then street just for random assortment of prefabs, I think. We'll still be able to capture what it roughly looks like within the thumbnail anyway when you come to cycle through them. So now we want to make that appear in there. So we add it to the city blocks group, save that, save it again, and then we'll go. Yeah, that'll do. Reload that. That centers itself nicely. And now, so we want that little school prefab on the northern side. So let's just get a block down there. Downtown. Well, that's quite long for... Oh. So let's just try placing that there. It's one more, and it's the wrong way round. Okay. Let's place it in the sky. We do not want to rotate this while it's inside of our build space. I'm just going to press X. Oh no, I'm not. I pressed Z by mistake. We're just going to press X. And then X again. Let's flip that round, yeah, nicely. So I think that's it. No, as usual, we went too fucking deep. Right. That's just one more. Because the other thing to remember, if we get the menu back up, is the ground level will actually be there. So that's fitting in nicely with the city block. But they've got this weird little gravel path which connects it. Now, I think it would be nice to have a footpath from the path to this prefab. There's nothing that we're really going to interfere with, because if we design the city block to overlap the prefab, we've got to consider we're going to copy over A as well, which means if I build a path all the way up to here, we're going to have a rectangle shape of blocks that are just going to get wiped out because the city block also has A. So things like this bus are going to disappear when you actually load the map up in the game. So what we're probably going to have to do is maybe copy this area and build this area into the prefab and then just build it the way we want it. In fact, I'm going to do that just now. So far, because ultimately we're going to delete this prefab now and save just the city block with a marked out hole, because it means at the back end, this is the area where, you know, are we going to have a little back alley? Is this going to be a little park area that's accessible to the school? Do we just extend this fencing and make an additional park area for the school? It's you know, same sort of style, just a few basic blocks. Is there anything underneath this? Yeah, so I mean, you can put quite a lot of work into the city blocks themselves, and without chopping or changing these prefabs, still make things look better. So we'll get rid of you now. Do we want to do that just yet? Oh, no. We want to... So we're going to get rid of the bounds. No, I think I'll leave this gravel. That's part of the prefab there. And then what we'll do is we'll copy the car park area up to this block, maybe. And then what I'll do is I'll add the extra paving tiles and stuff like that. So we're just gonna... Z? Shift Z, sorry. Is it just 2 blocks? Or 3? It's 3, isn't it? Sorry, okay. 2. So Control and C and copy that. And now, for show bounds again, get rid of him. And just make sure we delete any funky shit that's left over from the prefab. I'll just press J there. It doesn't like it's deleted anything. And then for me, I'm spawning to the north and east. So if I pop that here, and this is the little car park bit that we've just copied out. Oh, I've done it too low again. I forgot that I had the air. Right, okay. Let's just save this. And we'll see what kind of mess we've got when we load it back up. Yeah, so there's a bit of a bunch of weird shit going on there. So let's get rid of you. Right, so yeah. Is that terrain for that? I think it is. So, there you go. Oh man. So we're going to kind of make it like that was, you know, the two school buses could get in here, park up, drop the kids off. So we're going to probably need, say, 5, 3, 4, 5. And go 5. Let's get some terrain filler in here. Hmm. Just wondering, do I want that pathway on both sides? And if I do, I'm going to have to make this a bit shorter. It might make more sense to have a single. Put that on the hotbar, and then, yeah, don't shoot vehicles and stuff. Even in the editor, they will explode. How wide's that? 3. Right, and so we've got one new city block it's ready for one building. Let's go back over into the world editor. And we'll start looking at the interesting problems that you get with overlapping prefabs. And why order is very important. Like when it comes to doing the full map proper, I will probably have like the entire highway system all spawn at the same time. All the city blocks will spawn at the same time, probably after the buildings. There's a few things to factor in depending on what we build and how we build it. So initially we just want that city block in here with the school entranceway facing onto this road. And just remember, everything places from the north and east, so all we need to do. And this is the beautiful advantage of fixed sizes, because I know I just have to line that up. Just try that then. That needs to go one down. So there's the city block with the area we designated for the school. So now when I save this, because this was the last prefab placed, if I was to open the project maps prefabs XML, this prefab would now be the very bottom entry, thus the last spawn in prefab. Which means we should very easily be able to see, if I put that there, downtown, business order 6, load into, and it was like 2 blocks, wasn't it? So we need to go 1 more probably. Place the prefab. We went too far, did we? Yeah, we went too far down by 1 block. So we'll move it up 1, press X, get it turned the way we need it to be. Now you'll see here now, obviously those changes are gone, but will load back up when we reload the prefab. So now that we've saved this, the bottom prefab on the XML is now going to be this building 06. So now this spawns in after this one, which means the A blocks that they have here are going to overwrite the small part that we've just built. So if I zoom out here, get the bounds off. Let's exit there and reload it up. Nope. And what we should see is, like I've just said, that car park area should be gone. I'm sure by default copy and A blocks is on the prefabs, so as long as the city block spawns after the business 06 building, we should be okay. So yeah, we've got the outside edge of the city block with the little entranceway that were cut. Gravel paths. No pavement whatsoever. So now I'm just going to exit that. Where's my shortcut? So I'm just going to quickly off stream go into my 7 days to die folder, data, worlds, project map. Where are you? Prefabs XML. Edit. So at the very bottom, decoration type, business 06, position, blah blah blah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that out of there. And I'm just going to enter it back in before the city block. So now the bottom prefab is the city block and not the business 06. Just save view. Minimize that in case this doesn't work and I need it later. Now we can go straight back in. Now what we should see now is those sidewalks that we just built should reappear again because they're spawning in after the building and therefore overwriting that section. So let it load itself up. And there you go. But the issue we have now is we've copied the A blocks over this part of the prefab. So this is going to be quite problematic because what it means, we can fix it instantly now. If let's go here. So if we click this, press K, and so there, also copy A block. Let's take that off. Will this save though? It might not. We might have to do this in the editor. Right. So again, let's get the bounds up. It's close enough to actually select it. Press K, take that off. Save him. Let's try that again. So this shouldn't, in theory, wipe out the whole bottom floor of the building. But what it does mean is if we were, say, incorporating sewer prefabs into the city block itself, we aren't copying air, so the tunnels or whatever underground caverns or areas we have are going to spawn in filled full of fucking dirt or whatever it is. Now look at that. It's almost like there's an invisible school bus. So because the air blocks haven't wiped that out, it's also trying to spawn its initial decoration. I don't think we'd get this same glitch if we load this area up into an actual proper game. But you know, typically what I would do is even having something like a 4 or 5 block high wall separating buildings, you can make little alleyways and structures and stuff. It looks like we might just have to live. I'm not too sure if this really is such a good idea. I think I'd like to see this in a single player game or in a normal actual survival game to see what's actually there after it's generated region files and stuff like that. Because you don't want any glitchy shit. You know, like be shooting your gun at a zombie just to hit and blow up an invisible fucking bus in front of you. Or so that's something to consider. No, I'm not so sure that a school opposite from a skyscraper is the right way to do it, but you know, once we've got a grid system laid out, we can easily enough shift these around. Yeah, it's definitely. We could save ourselves a lot of hassle with the sewers, subways, and all that sort of stuff by attaching them to the city blocks. But that is going to require us to copy the air blocks 100%. Now, the other way to do it would be have a separate sewer prefab that just has something built into a city block that would connect the two, and then spawn in a separate prefab that does copy the air blocks. And, you know, we can get around it. I'm just not too sure yet what's kind of the best system to knuckle down with and stick to. The more I look at it though, the more I quite like these paths. I think initially maybe it's a 2x2 grid of these city blocks. We'll finish 4, just using vanilla prefabs. We'll build up a bit of decoration so that they blend in nice. We'll add it like a bus stop or some other sort of little bits and bobs. And once we've got a 2x2 grid, if we're kind of happy and we can see a feature for like the sewers and that sort of stuff as well with it, that's maybe when we'll start to consider, right, okay, what sort of size and shape are we going to make the city? Then we'll probably start approaching the map, because it'll be a whole fresh map. As much as I'll probably still keep the project map going just because it's a useful thing to have to show everything off. But the new map, I think we'll build and design it with the intention of actually playing some survival on it as well at some point. So it's nice being able to watch other people playing on the stuff as well. I know some streamers dive in and eat up having custom content to play through, so if people are too shy to post in the comments or on the forums, you can still pick up a lot of information from how someone uses something and the things that they do and the complaints that they make. So if you are watching these and you are streaming, Slaan hunting, we'll call it, further down the line when there's a bit more stuff there, or even if you're playing survival or streaming on the project demo map. Fire us the links. I'm very interested to see what other people are doing with these prefabs, or with their own prefabs. If you think I'm doing it wrong, I mean, Christ, get in touch, you know. We're all here to learn, and you learn better by doing. So yeah. The compromise, I think, now might be to extend this path up to about here and just live with this little gravel area, and then maybe just go back to the wider thing with the drive in, drive off, get rid of that bus, roll with one that spawns on there. Because I'm pretty sure it's building the bus that increases the height of the city block itself, because we could also delete this layer, and then we would be able to copy air blocks, and we would be able to have tunnels and stuff underneath attached to it. Because the sewer is going to be interesting, we need to come up with a decent way to do that. A realistic way that doesn't involve putting pipes and all sorts of shit under every single street. But we do want a system that can be accessed from a few points that might have its own little dungeon areas associated with it. So, I think we'll get back to the prefab editor. We'll make those modifications. And I think I'll probably work on this some more off stream. We'll see where the ideas and that are going from there. So we're going to go back to the idea that we're not going to overlap anything, which means deleting all of that shit. But we are and like I say, if you end up with extra weird space in the middle, this is car park area, or car park's just the easiest thing I can think of to fill up space, or little park areas, seating areas. The street edges are a lot easier to deal with. So let's just save that and reload it straight away. We'll make sure there's no funky shit going on before we do anything else. Okay. So the next building. We want a school, and then it's freaky shit. Do we have a commercial group? We do. Bookstore. Strip club. I think the bookstore is probably the best idea so far. Or a daycare centre. That looks like it's got a bit of a basement to it as well. No, I suppose if we keep the preschool thing and then the daycare centre together, it opens up some room for making the bigger park areas and things like that out back. Yeah, let's go with this one. Oh, unless it's going to spawn in totally the wrong place, but now I'm just going to assume that this is going to be flipped around the wrong way, just like the other one was. So straight away, I'm just going to press X, and X, yep, and it was. Need to come, oh, not that way. 1, 2 forward. 1 and 2 down. Nice. So yes, it's eaten in. Looks like there's a bit of a hill here, but that's on the city block itself. We can always replace all that kind of shit. So what I'm going to do now is get rid of this prefab. Not with that button. We got no fucking weird shit going on underneath it this time. Do we want to go wild with this stuff at the minute? Stop there. To here. One thing that we need to do. Bring that back into properties. And not those properties though. Those properties. And copy air blocks back on. It's on by default, and if I need to fuck around with it, then I'll do it on a per prefab basis. It's going to be something I forget about, and it'll do fucking weird stuff later on if I don't change it back. I'm just wondering, is that a mistake on my behalf? Do I need to put some terrain filler in there? I think it is. You'll sure find out. So let's save this. Let's get out. So it looks like it's one layer. Is that 2 blocks missing? 1, 2, yeah. So we've lost one layer because of just the lip on the city block itself. How have we lost a second layer? Is that still spawning too high? Not high enough, not too high. So back to where you were, up 1. Oh no, it was spawning on the right. Interesting indeed. Right. Let's exit there. Before I test that other building, I'm going to go back in and just have a look. I'm going to take off that whole top lip. Unless with the skyscraper one I did disable copying air blocks. I wasn't sure that I had done that, but I might have. Ah, no, it's not. It's because... Excuse me. If we... do this... shading violation. Interesting. Oh, it's gone whatever it is. Let's just reload that and see if anything weird happens. That seems okay. One thing I quickly want to check is, have I set the air blocks to copy on the other set block? Because obviously the skyscraper... Oh no, because that skyscraper spawns in after the city block itself. Right, okay, let's just test that. Because if you're going to be limited to spawning things in a certain order, then it makes sense to figure out what that order needs to be now, because it might impact how we layer things like the highway, the city blocks, and things that go beneath together. So I'm expecting to log in here and seeing the bottom slice of that building taken out again. Oh, one of them. Yeah, there we go. So it's copied the air from the hole, and then because this layer, even though it's got these half blocks on, that's actually the layer that they're in, and it's wiped them out as well. So if I exit out of here, can I put that on the side screen actually? Let us just slide you across. Asus. Bring that on there. Right. So all I'm going to do to fix that is take that off. Put it on there. Oh shit. Because you'll see here, the city block spawns for the skyscraper, and then the skyscraper spawns over the top, and then the city block spawns here, and then the buildings are going to spawn over the top. Oh, sorry, that's the street, but then the buildings will spawn over the top of the city block. Just go back to the game. Save that file. So that's the prefabs.xml. That's in the actual world folder. It's data, 7 days to die /data/worlds, and then the name of the world. Well, spell that out. So it's kind of looking like we might have to sacrifice being able to overlap certain things by forcing the city blocks to spawn first. But there you go. So we can enable the copying of air blocks if the building spawns in after. We can disable the copying of air blocks, but we just have to be aware if we're bringing stuff that spawns below the ground or something overlaps through an airspace, it's going to become obstructed. So get my menu back up just so I can see this shit again. But I don't know, by the time we get a little bit of traffic down on the roads, filling with some buildings, there's a little bit of fiddly work. But once you've got you're probably going to realistically put maybe one more prefab in here. Depending on the space that you've got left over, you might squeeze something in, or I don't know. At that point, I'd probably be looking to just fill with decoration, bus stops or something like that. But if you could build something usable and then drop in 3 or 4 ready to play on vanilla prefabs in the space of an hour and a half, 2 hours, then it doesn't take you too long to build up a custom city area. And all we've really done is just tidy up the way it looks. Now, we haven't obviously done the street. Streets I'll probably wait because they're going to interlink with the sewers. We might end up having to drop things underneath the streets that'll bridge together systems between the city blocks. And typically, as the space under the roads tends to be unobstructed or used by anything else, that's usually, or in the past, has been the area that I would normally build my sewer tunnels and stuff. But you can work around individual prefab basements, and if they've got a lot of stuff below ground, there's a lot of room on the city blocks doing them the size that we are. But I think now that you've had a little bit look at the test world, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video and in the description, all of these prefabs, including the most important one, if you want to get involved with this little city building project, then this prefab, this one, that's in the city blocks category there. So the city block base test, even if the styling changes size wise, these are probably the dimensions that I'm going to use. We will always have a road at least this wide, and we'll always have a road at least the 19 meters wide. That's the 2 sizes that the vanilla maps use. So it's always going to be handy to be able to link them to the proper road systems. But no, have a mess around. I look forward to seeing what other people produce. I think that's pretty much everything at this point. We've got the prefabs now for download. You've got the test map to have a look around on. So maybe have a little try of some of the things that I've been doing. And then, like I say, I'm always reading the comments. I'll reply to everybody that I can. We'll start making more of an effort to start checking out other people's prefabs, because on second glance of the forums, there is a few other threads there that kind of slip by without us noticing. So it does look like we've got a bit of other custom content to draw inspiration from and possibly use. But I think it's going to be, in the short term, refining the streets and the base city blocks and getting the initial maybe 2x2 or 3x3 grid set out, and then once we're happy with that, we'll look how we're going to expand it and incorporate railway systems, subways, sewers, all the other jizz that everybody gets all excited over. But I think for now, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I shall see you next time for some more building and prefabbing fun. So until then, ciao.